Welcome to Love Vocals Nation, this show where we dive deep into enchanting world of vocal-driven electronic music. Today, we have a very special guest coming all the way from Canada who needs no introduction in the trance music and universe. He's not only a talented producer, but he's also a label manager and A&R. His music has graced the biggest trance labels globally, and his performances has taken him across the continents, leaving the crowds with unforgettable sets. Please give a warm welcome to Somna.
Yay!
Hello.
So, loving your background. You
That's a great background. Are you in IKEA right now?
Yeah, just doing some shopping.
Doing a bit of shopping.
Yeah, just doing
some of those
shopping.
Swedish meatballs.
Yeah, just building that vocal booth. Using the Calex.
I see.
Smooth,
Good
very
job.
We're so happy to have you here with us,
Yeah.
Pamela. So thank you so much for taking your
Yeah.
time and sitting down with us.
All right. So you have achieved significant recognition in the global trance scene. And what inspired you to pursue a career in trance?
I don't know. I just really like melodies. When I first started writing music, I actually used to write music under a different alias before I started doing trance.
Ooh.
So I used to do like hard dance under roadie style,
Oh.
and but before that, actually, the first release I ever had was a trance track under my real name, Sander Benjamin Leung. But it was Leung and Juan, so it's with my good friend Chris, and that was on like a label called Tunnel Records. It's like a
Wow.
German label. But then I was kind of playing more of the harder stuff, and that kind of took off for me. So I started focusing on that. Yeah, I actually used to live in the UK. I used to live in Manchester.
Did you?
Yeah, I used to live in,
I didn't
in
know
Salford. I lived there, and I used to like perform as roadie style for Tidy Tracks, a record label out in the UK. And then I started the Somna project in 2011 because I moved
Wow.
back to Canada and got married. And then I think as I got older, I was like, I kind of want to play like slower stuff, and I've always liked melodies. It's just the harder stuff just took off for me, so I ended up focusing on that.
Wow.
I'm
You
really
said-
curious
Yeah, go ahead.
where the name Somna comes from.
So when I was trying to come up with a DJ name, I was talking to a friend of mine, and at that time I was playing a lot of like Call of Duty zombie mode, and he was like, "This is
As you do.
Somna." Yeah, Somna's like it's a kind of zombie, and I was like, "Oh, what? I'm sold." And it turns out Somna means to fall asleep in Swedish. So I was like, "Oh,
Yeah, that's
that
true.
actually works very well with the style of music."
I love it. That's a great name. I do. I love it.
But I have to tell you, there's no way I'm gonna fall asleep to your music.
Yeah, that's not the goal, but
Yeah.
So
That's
you
incredible.
said, I'm curious, just to fire off the back of that, you said, as I got older, but you look like supremely young. It's like,
Oh no, I'm
wow.
gonna hit 40 next year.
Oh, stop.
Yeah,
You
No
only look
way.
12. What?
Yeah.
that's because I'm Asian. But thank you.
That's amazing.
So tell us how you actually got into trance. Like,
So I went to my first like rave in 2001. I was like, oh, this is amazing. So I ended up in 2003. I bought a pair of direct drive turntables. They were Gemini PT 2100s. So
Nice.
they were like not as good as Techniques, but I was just in my parents' basement, just mixing records. My first demo was actually on tape. I had to like record it on tape and hand it out to promoters.
wow.
And then I started producing music in 2005, roughly, I think it was. And I was like mailing out CDs and stuff, and that was for the like the harder stuff. And I got like a bunch of stuff signed, and then I got invited to the UK to play a couple shows, and then after that I got signed to the Tidy Tracks agency, and then I moved out to the UK. I lived there for 5.5 years, but I was doing music full time. It was like touring, a lot of ghost engineering that I was doing for people. And then yeah, and then my music styles start to get a bit slower, and like my passion for trance was like, I was like, I don't really want to just keep doing this harder stuff.
Right.
I really want to write stuff that has like stuff that my parents can actually enjoy.
Oh,
So I started to
love
write
it.
like trance. I actually did house and techno as well too, under other names, but the trance stuff was really what I was passionate about.
Yeah.
Then I moved back to Canada, and just yeah, it's just been like grinding away. I guess it's been 20 years of DJing.
Wow.
As of September.
That's
So,
crazy.
yeah.
Wow.
How are you going to celebrate that? That's huge. 20 years.
I actually didn't even, it didn't even occur to me until right now. So I need to figure out something to do.
You need to do something to celebrate.
Yeah, probably some sort of like stream on my Twitch or something like that.
Yeah.
Nice. That's amazing.
Very
wow.
good.
So you're saying that you did techno and house as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Say more about that. Tell us more about that.
I did a bunch of house stuff under my real name, so under Benjamin Leung.
Right.
I did like a pop track with a vocalist called Sheena. She was the one that wrote that like I can't wait for the weekend to begin. You know that like.
Oh yeah, I know her. Yes.
Awesome.
And a bunch of and then I did techno under an alias called Kaifu, which I actually ended up selling to someone else afterwards because I just didn't have time.
Did you?
So I became like a silent partner, but I had some stuff on like Umex label and Italo Business and stuff like that. Yeah, I think it was a lot of experimenting because I was getting maybe a little bit sick of doing the harder stuff. And then like I love all kinds of music styles. I'd love to keep doing techno and house, but it's just I don't have enough time.
That's awesome. It's great that you kind of diversified a lot, and did doing these other genres of music, did they sort of bring something to your trance when you went back to that again?
I think it helped me become a better producer. I wouldn't necessarily say that what I learned writing techno translated over to trance, although now so much like trance and techno merged together that is kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but I definitely think doing and creating different styles of music definitely helped me to learn to be like a better producer in general. Definitely working in house music was when I started working with vocalists, and that was a bit of a shock because when you work with like a voice, it's so dynamic. It's not like a synth that you just put a compressor on it and then you're good. There's so much more to making a vocal sound good.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I feel like I'm still learning with like stacking and all that sort of stuff, but that was a shock.
It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. Yeah, like the appreciation that I feel should come from a producer when you get a fully comped and tuned and stacked vocal is like it's like a huge blessing because most of the time you don't it's amazing when you get something that you can just like fit into your project and not have to like even pull up Melodyne and start tuning
it's just all there for you. Okay, so vocalists, listen out to that, please. Okay, if you're sending anything to Somna, make sure it's sorted.
No. I'm
kidding.
I appreciate when it is sorted, but I'm more than happy to work with vocals that aren't super polished. I'm just saying, like when it does come and it's like super polished, I don't know. I just feel very grateful when I get a vocal that I don't have to do like gratitude. Yeah,
it's very cool. Very, very cool.
Very cool. Yeah. So speaking about like vocalists, how do you pick the vocalist that you actually work with?
When I first started doing trance and I was trying to find vocalists, obviously as a name that wasn't very recognized, I started off by writing like instrumentals and sending them to vocalists to write the top lines over. And then that sort of graduated to writing just like some chords, some piano chords, or really rough like idea and sending it over. I think I'm very fortunate now that I do get top lines sent over to me by a lot of vocalists. So I get to kind of pick and choose. Although I do still do the other method where I will send like a melodic idea over to a vocalist. But I'm very fortunate that after producing for a while, that vocalists are trusting enough to send top lines to me rather than the other way around. And I prefer that way for sure, because I think it's just, you get a better product sometimes, because the vocalist isn't like confined to your instrumental.
Right.
You
Interesting.
It's more of like a, I feel like sometimes when you write an instrumental and you send it to a vocalist, a top line, you end up with like just like a track. But then if a vocalist sends a top line and then you write around it, you end up with a song. So it's like you get like a song, because what they've written is just not like a dance track to begin with.
Right.
Like when you're writing an instrumental, as a performing artist, you want it to be a banger, which means that sometimes you just don't leave very much room for a vocalist to do their thing. And I find that happens a lot as well too, because I have a couple of vocalists that I kind of like manage and help record, and we get like instrumentals where it's like, well, there's so much going on here that it's hard to write a vocal too. So
Right.
I feel like the relationship between like a vocal and an instrumental, for me, seems to be more like, the magic seems to happen more when I get even if it's just like a rough idea, like vocal, and then I bounce off that and we bounce off that.
And then evolve it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now that sounds great. And I love what you're saying, because it's great to get that insight into the mind of the producer, rather than the other way around. Because, I don't know about you, Linnea. I mean, I do tend to get backing tracks in to write to. But I've come from old school, so I've worked with writing teams, doing pop music and stuff like that, where you're writing and then demoing on the spot with people playing instruments, like, in the moment. But it's lovely to hear you saying that. I like to give that kind of that breadth, if you will, to give that space, by getting that vocal, and it becomes more of a song. That's what I'm hearing, and I really like that.
Yeah, I love that too.
Yeah.
Your music has been released on some of the biggest trance labels around the world, such as Armada, Enhanced Music, Future Sound of Egypt. So could you tell us a little bit more about your creative process in the studio? So what program are you actually producing in?
So I use Cubase as my main DAW. And I guess my process is, because I almost like 90% of the stuff I write is with vocals. So it's kind of like I explained before, like I'll get a top line and stuff. But let's pretend like I'm writing something that doesn't have vocal. I usually start with just like my bass line and my groove. I feel like my style of trance is more like, it's kind of like a trance 2.0 / electro trance, where I like maybe like Andrew Bayer kind of type stuff, where the bass line is a very hard hitting, and the track is really driven by this like really aggressive bass. So I like to start with that, and then the thing that I usually follow to next is just writing chords before I start writing like any kind of like top melody or anything like that. I usually start with like piano chords, because I feel like that's the foundation of how I want to create emotion first, by having a good set of chords first before I start writing anything on top. And then from there, it's just kind of like, it just kind of snowballs, I guess. And then it goes from there, and then I end up going back and forth with it for a while.
And do you have any favorite VSTs that you're using?
I just got this plugin called Pigment by Arturio. Is it Arturio? Yeah, I think that's how you say it. Pigments. And it's really cool. Just diving into that. But I guess before that would be Serum, that I've been using a lot. And then before Serum happened, it was like all silence.
Right.
And for vocals, I really like the I use the Lexicon 224 and the Arts Acoustic. Arts Acoustics for like the longer reverb, and then the Lexicon for like a shorter reverb on that. And then the Avalon 7337, I think it is, for the compressor.
How do you make a bass line really thick? Because that's like one of my things that I'm kind of working on all the time. Like let's say, you have maybe 20 channels, with VSTs, trying to make it thick. But
Mhm.
what would you say is your process to make a bass line sound big?
It's interesting because when I first started to like work on those kind of bass lines, especially thinking about like, drum and bass and dubstep, I was like, oh, layer, 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 layer. But then when you
Yeah.
start to analyze it a bit further, it's actually a lot simpler, I think, than we think. I think it starts with like a really good sub, a really
Yeah.
clean like sine wave for a sub, and
Hmm.
then putting like mid bass for the sort of I guess like I would say like the sine wave, like the sub is kind of like your rice, and then like your vegetables and like meat on top
Nice.
is kind of like the more like aggressive like wobbles and like saws and stuff like that. But making sure that you cut enough in the EQ to allow the sub to come through, because
Mm.
that is what I think gives it weight,
Yeah.
and that's not you don't really hear that as much as you feel,
Mm.
and then all the other stuff on top like the saws and stuff like that you are layering, um,
Yeah.
is what you hear. But
Yeah.
without like a really good sub, you could have like the most amazing like aggressive top end for the bass, but it
Yeah.
won't sound like big because you're missing the sub. So I'd say like just making sure like you firstly have like a really good sub is
Hmm.
like the right start for making sure that your bass lines are nice and heavy.
Yeah. Is there any VST that you use mostly for your subs that you would
Um,
recommend to
Not
listeners out there?
really, actually. Mostly Serum, I'd say. But I
Hmm.
used to like before Serum came out, I just like load up Silence and just load up like one voice, like sine wave, and then that was like pretty much like my sub. Um,
Right.
yeah, but nowadays you can just get you can get a pretty good sub in just about every VST, I think.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
yeah, just like anything that can generate a sine wave, I guess.
Yeah. Is there any process when you're producing that you feel is more difficult than the other one?
Um, I still feel like I struggle sometimes with getting the kick and the bass relationship
Hmm.
sounding like as happy as like I could be. Like
Yeah.
I'll write like 3 songs where I'll find a kick that I'm like, yeah, this is the one. I love this kick. And then like on the 4th song, I'm like, oh, this kick is terrible. And then I change the kick. And then the next 3 songs, I'm like, this is the one. This is the
Yeah.
kick. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
no, this
Yeah.
is terrible. So I feel like the quest for like the perfect kick is still like really, really difficult to
Right.
The quest for the kick. I love it.
quest for the kick. Yeah, a lot of people say the snare is another one as well too that people
Yeah.
struggle with, but for me, I think I struggle less with the snare than I do with the kick.
Right. Right.
Wow.
Yeah. There you
How
go.
do you know that you've written the perfect song for yourself that you're happy with and you're ready to take it to the next level? How do you know it?
Um, I So I know there's like people when they write, they're like super perfectionists and they just like maybe never send it out because they're just like never happy
Hmm.
with it.
Hmm.
I'm kind of the opposite. I write and I write pretty fast, and then
Hmm.
I will try not to dwell on it too much. Like I mean, like I'm not trying to put out like a crappy product or anything like that, but I try to like get it finished where I'm happy with, and then let it like fly. And then if I need to make tweaks, and I make tweaks. I don't know if I've ever written something where I'm like, this is the perfect song,
Okay.
because I've been at that stage where I've written something and I'm like, yes, this is a hit, this is the one, and then it just like is not, and then I'm
All
like,
right.
oh, okay,
I
and
know
then
that feeling.
I
It
get
happens
super
to me all the
disappointed.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
No.
so weird. For me, it's like every time you feel like, oh my God, this is gonna blow up. It
it
doesn't.
never
And
does.
then the other song that you felt like, that was kind of shit. It blows up and you're
Yeah,
like, what?
I was
What's
just
going
about to say
on?
that. It's always like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I've learned to like taper my expectations because you just
Yeah.
never know. Like, and sometimes it's not even like the song that blows up might not even be that good. It just happened to get picked up by a bunch of playlists, and
Yeah.
and there's nothing you can do about it. It's like it just happened to like hit all the playlists and just get streamed like crazy, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
great, you know.
Do you ever, and I suppose this is my phrase, by the way, I was talking to another writer about this the other day. Do you ever flog a dead horse? I.e., okay, you know, I've written a track.
Yeah.
I kind of like it, but it's not there yet. So I'm going to just keep at it until I get it. Or do you have a limitation on how, you know, when to stop?
Oh, I definitely flog it.
You flog it.
I flog it big time. I definitely don't have very many projects that I never finish.
Right.
There are some
Wow.
projects where I have finished and I've
Mhm.
never released because I'm not happy with it. But
Right.
I usually end up coming back to it, and then if it's so I have like this one song that I wrote like a long time ago, and like it's just like I've never been happy with it. But then what I ended up doing was I just took it apart, and then I just took the parts and I chucked it up on my Patreon, and I'm like, here you guys go, here's a new sample pack and stuff. So I like
Ah,
repurposed it in like another
I-
like method.
You are so
Nice.
enterprising. You come
Yeah.
up, you come up
Yeah.
with all these different ways to sort of utilize your stuff. I love that.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Or the
Yeah.
melody's like good, but I just can't get everything together. So then, you know, I just sell the melody. Like,
That's amazing. Well done, you. That's brilliant. So you've got over 200,000 listeners on Spotify.
it's
Yeah.
dropped down now, but it
Has
like
it?
it's like it depends. Like when you start releasing a lot, then it goes up, and then it slowly goes down, and then you're like, oh, this is sad, and then it goes up, and then it's like it's one of those things where like I'm always like, don't look at it, don't look at it, but then I look at it, and I'm like, oh, it
Oh,
went down by like 1,000 today, and then like it's the most I've had is like up to 300,000, and then like it just kind of it comes and goes.
how does actually this is a really good topic because obviously today it's all about numbers, right? It's about, you know, where you are in that kind of scale. What does it feel like when you see things drop?
It's discouraging because then you're like, oh, you know, what can I do to like bring it up? Like, why is it dropping? And like deep down inside, I know it's because like, you know, when you release a song, then like people start listening right away.
Right.
It gets picked up by some playlists or some radio shows. It gets played on ASOT, and all of a sudden your monthly listeners shoot up a little bit. And then it's bound to go down. But yeah, I guess like when I look at it, I'm like, oh no, like our promoter's looking at this, and all of a sudden, like he's not at 200,000 anymore. He's at like 160 or
Yeah.
130. Like, so it's yeah, it's just one of those things that like my advice would be like, don't look at the numbers. But
Don't look at the
I
numbers.
struggle with not looking at numbers, so it's hard for me to like, you know, I can say one thing, but I have the same struggle that everyone else does when it comes to looking at like the numbers.
Right.
I think that's a great title for a track. Don't look at the numbers.
Yeah.
See? It's kind of like, so I'm just thinking as you were talking about these numbers, it's kind of like it's like a new school kind of psychological trauma that people have to go through. Oh, my numbers have dropped.
Mm-hmm.
And then having to think about ways in which you can bring them back up, and what have I done wrong, you know, kind of that kind of self-reflection stuff. That's what I was thinking as you were talking there. So.
Yeah, it's tough. I think expectations that you put on yourself is like one of the biggest like mental hurdles for artists, I think.
Do you think it's a good thing that these numbers are so powerful?
No, I don't think so. I think like without numbers, it's hard for promoters, for yourself, for labels to kind of quantify like success, because you'll never know. So it's good to have those metrics, because then you know like if you need to do better or how things are going. But it's like just so detrimental to like mental health at the same time.
There you go.
It's like it's like that juggle where you can't escape it.
Yeah. I think it's I don't think it's a great thing. And I go back to, you know, back when I first started out, I mean, you didn't have those kind of metrics. You just had to get on with it and just do your best and become a master, you know, at your craft. So yeah, I kind of think it's quite sad, and I think it's very sad that the labels do, and managers and promoters do, put so much stock in these numbers. And especially, it's, you know, because that doesn't necessarily, you know,
No, if I could
speak
change,
about the actual person's talent, I don't think.
if I could change something about the music industry right now, it would be like, don't look at people's numbers. If the music is good, book them. You know, if you think if the crowd is you know, putting their hands up and dancing, and you see a lot of people love that music, then book them instead of looking at numbers. Just you know, follow the music.
Don't look at the numbers, guys. It's a t-shirt.
It's so true, but I guess like the promoters wouldn't know who to book if they didn't have like numbers to begin with. Which is kind of.
I hear that. I think my counter to that might be, but there are some amazingly talented DJs, producers, writers out there who maybe don't have the numbers, and if that's what people are going on, there's going to be a lot of great talent drop through the, you know, the bottom of the basket, if you will. So
sure, there's tons of great talent that doesn't get noticed.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so my point, that's how I started off with the 2,000 listeners on 200,000 listeners on Spotify. So how do you stay connected with that audience?
Well, when it comes to, if you're talking purely Spotify numbers, I guess like you just have to keep releasing music or try to make connections with playlist curators to get your music on there. There's a new Spotify, I don't know if it's called like Spotify Wrapped or whatever, but you can record like a little like personalized video to thank your fans for the year.
Nice.
Something that I still have to do actually, because I think my manager told me about it. So I think that's also helpful to sort of connect with people. I think trying to redirect people over to Spotify and follow you and listen is important. But yeah, I don't know, it's tough. I think TikTok is really big right now, but I struggle with TikTok so much because I really, really don't like it. But it's just a lot of people finding a lot of success on there.
It's huge. I love TikTok. I'm a TikTok fanatic.
I'm definitely not a TikToker, but
I'm terrible.
As you say, Ben,
I like Instagram, but
same. I'm an Instagrammer, I guess. TikTok is more like, do I really have to? And then I guess I have to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's really funny because I've never ever got into Instagram at all. I've never really done any posting on it, so I transitioned from Facebook to straight to TikTok. So I love that. Yeah.
Wait, can we just talk about your backgrounds? Those are seeing the background. Guys, this is amazing.
I love it. We're all in Target now, folks.
Yes, I'm so excited.
What you having for dinner?
Anyways, your performances have taken you to various countries and very prestigious events such as Dream State and Luminosity. So do you ever adapt your sets to those different audiences and cultures around the world? How do you like approach this to create like a special experience for the fans?
Well, I definitely do cater my sets a bit because when I play in North America, for example, and I'm playing a club that is kind of more known for bass music or doesn't have that many trance artists, and I have to rethink some of the stuff I play because there may be a lot of patrons there that just aren't actually followers of trance. And then whereas when I play like Luminosity, I've never played for Luminosity, but I am playing for them in a couple weeks at ADE.
I saw that.
And for that, like I definitely would not play the same kind of set that I would play in North America. Because like my North American sets have like a bit more of a EDM splash to them, whereas like at Luminosity, I think I would just, I don't know, probably get like eggs thrown at me or something like that if I went a little bit too EDM. So it'll definitely be more like,
I think so, yeah,
more like trance or something like that. And then like when I played out in like Asia, I played in Manila in the Philippines, and that that was an experience because they had an MC that was screaming over my entire set, the entire set, like
Oh
every breakdown,
no.
every like the entire set. And they also like they told
Oh,
me they're like, yo, we want your set to be like really turned up. So I just like went in at like 140. It was like almost like hard dance kind of type stuff. And then people still don't dance. Like they just it's all like table.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
all
yeah,
like
yeah.
table service. So they just sit there and
Oh
then like
no.
Oh,
and like they
that's so bad.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
no real feedback. Like that you can tell
Oh,
that they're enjoying themselves, but like you don't get like a dancing crowd. You might get a couple people. But then after my set, it was so weird. They played like the theme song for the club, and then
yeah.
everyone got up and started doing the synchronized dance. And it was
What?
like the weirdest
What
thing
is
ever. I was like, what's going on?
what?
Like it was they're all like
That's
like and I was like, oh my God.
oh my god, what is this
Yeah, so
place?
that was like super, super interesting.
That's marriage. I never heard about that before.
Yeah. And then
Crazy.
Go ahead.
for some of the sets that do allow it, where they have like a visual artist that's running like show control or something like that, then I can connect with them in advance and have like my lyric video synced up to my music, so it shows up with lyrics on the screen. But that's
Mm,
like kind of rare, and I've only ever done it twice so far. But
right.
I for this coming dream state, I do have a VJ that's flying in to do the
Mm,
visuals at the same time. So hopefully we
amazing.
can get everything to look like more of a performance.
Yeah. What do you think about visuals? Because that's something that has kind of exploded. Like Eric Prince
Yeah.
started with his visuals, and then now we have other DJs kind of following that stuff, and that is very, very expensive.
Yes,
Right?
yeah. I would love to do it more, but like I'm not a big artist, so I don't get paid like a lot. So some of the times it's just like out of my own pocket to try
Mm,
to create a memorable set and experience that will get me booked in the future. So it's
yeah.
almost like a loss in order to set myself apart from people. But I would love to do that, and I think a lot of trance people would too. But even like myself as a smaller artist, I think the bigger trance artists still don't get paid that much. It
Hmm.
in comparison to like the whole of like
Yeah.
dance music to be able to afford like definitely not like your Eric Prydz kind of type stuff, or even like Tale of Us,
Yeah.
like visuals is just, the scene is too small for and not enough money to pay artists enough to do something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
That
agree.
yeah, have to say you need to pay your artists more.
And then we get
Promoters.
ungrateful.
Yeah,
Just saying. Come on, get real.
but
Yeah.
but also I think people just need to come out more and support events, because there's definitely a lack of the amount of people that are going out to events has dwindled, I think, for trance,
Mm,
which means promoters can't afford it. So it's not the promoters' fault. It's not even the patrons' fault as well too. It's kind of like a whole trance scene's fault, because I think it kind of starts with like um, this like mindset that there's quite a bit of trance people that are like, this is not trance, this is not trance, and they just like argue, and it's like they don't go to support, and all they want to hear is like the same kind of like uh, same classic trance, or DJs that they've been seeing for ages, and it's hard for
yeah.
newer talent to break through, or talent that doesn't make the kind of music that uh, is like is trance in people's eyes, or
Mm,
that are unwilling to see past like it being a certain BPM, and then people don't go to support, and it's just like it's a whole like
That's the
it's not
thing.
just like one person has like an issue. It kind of stems from like
yeah.
yeah.
So
That's
can
pretty
can
interesting.
you break down what you've just described there? Kind of break it down to kind of like let people who are listening to this understand what that diversity looks like. What break it down. You said it.
Um,
You mentioned about BPMs.
well, I think that trance can come in many different forms,
Right.
but there's definitely a lot of chatter online from I would say like purists who believe that trance has to be a certain way, and that is like that euphoric nothing can be below 138 kind of
Right.
mentality. And you know, I believe there's not as many people in that mindset as there are trans fans in a whole, but they are the loudest on the internet, and it's very damaging for our scene and for artists as well too, because you know, like there's artists that I've collaborated with that are, they'll be like, oh, you know, like, will trans fans like this because, you know, it's it's not like fully trans or something like that. Or you write a song that is like I've written music where I think is like really transy, but the bass line's not a rolling bass line. And then like a comments on there like, oh, this would be better if it was a rolling bass line. And it's like, you know, or people that like, this isn't trans, or it's just it's damaging for the artists. It's damaging for I think for promoters, because then they feel like if they don't book a certain style of artist, and you know, the people that are so loud with their voices aren't going to come to the events. So the event lineups don't really change much as well too, because they have to play it safe or do classic nights or something like that. And then, you know, people don't come out, and those people that are so vocal online about what trans should or should not be,
Right.
generally don't even go out to events. So like they've somehow alienated promoters into booking acts to fit a certain style of music to get those people to come out who don't actually come out, and then the people that want something fresh or maybe don't even know these like old school DJs don't come out because they don't know. So it's like it's weird.
It's
You're
wild.
trying to draw from a pool of people that will never, that don't really go out anyways, and they just complain. And then no new people don't come in, the lineups stay the same, the tickets don't sell, the promoters don't take chances on other names because they're like, oh, well, if we're not selling enough tickets with these recognizable trans names for the trans fans, then why should we take the risk on someone that maybe writes amazing music, maybe has like great social media and a connection with fans, but isn't the mold of what the mob wants? And then it's like this end up the cycle thing. And then sometimes the promoters be like, okay, yeah, we'll take a chance, we'll book this like newer artist that's like really good, but because we're taking such a chance, we're going to offer you so low of money that, like, you know, because it's a risk for us. And then for the artist, it's like, great, like I need this opportunity, so I have to do it, but then they take a loss, or, you know, so it's just kind of like it's not, I feel like it stems from like a lot deeper than just promoters. And
I love that, and thank you for breaking that down, because you know, I've done quite a lot of trans tracks, but I never really thought about it like that, because I just do my thing. You know, I don't really think, I don't do the beats, I don't make any of that stuff. So yeah, I never thought about it like that. So thank you for sharing that.
It's definitely a topic that I have heard from a lot of people in the music industry, and there's so much frustration about it. And the thing is, we have you know, the trans legends that always get booked and are always on the main stage, and great for them. You know, we're so you know, supportive of that as well. But it leaves, like, as you say, very little chance for anyone new to come
break
up
through
to that level. And then what happens, I don't know, let's say maybe in the next 100 years, if nobody else is allowed to go into the top, right? And it's only the same acts in the top, then there won't be any legends. You know, we need some new legends, I think.
I love that point, Linnea, because I mean, you'll get like, you know, forgive me, I'm not disparaging Armin, fabulous DJ, but you know, but I don't no I'm not going to say anything bad, but you know, we don't want to have, like, you know, crinkly old men, you know, doing the DJ, because, and I don't mean he's not a crinkly old man right now, but you know, later on, because we haven't been nourishing, building, and kind of pushing through new talent. I agree with what you're saying. I love that.
I'm actually okay with, like, you know, crinkly old men DJing.
Crinkly old men on the deck.
As long as like the music they play isn't crinkly old music that is like not bringing new people in. Like if they're supporting new talent and new music and pushing forward like the scene instead of holding it back, then I think like no matter what age they are is totally fine. It's just is whether or not that what they make, what they say online, how they act is pushing our scene forward, or trying to like hold on to like the past, which is kind of like playing right into that mob mentality of how like it was better back in the day. It must be a certain sound.
Yeah,
like
stick with this, stick with this. It works. It works. Yeah, and I think because I did an awful lot of progressive house back in the day, and our outfit we were like pioneers for UK tribal house. And if it weren't for people like the producers I was working with at the time, that would not have evolved. And and that's one thing you were talking about, like the rolling bass being a kind of a trademark, if you will, you know, for the kind of purists. But I think you need to be evolving. You need to be moving forward. So yeah,
it's tough. If it doesn't change, then people will just keep leaving. Producers will leave the scene because they're not able to be heard, or their music is just like, it's forward thinking, but it's just not what people are expecting of how the sound should be like. And then they're like, okay, well, you know, it's time to move to a different style, and then we end up losing really talented like producers because
we want to bring new producers and great producers and people that are going to kind of push things forward. That's one of the things we're doing here. We want to get people pushed forward a little bit more, rather than just the same old people doing it. And that's, again, I'm not being disrespectful to anyone. They've earned their place up there, but you know, we have to move the industry forward.
Absolutely. The thing is, I have met you, Ben, who is also running a label, and we're gonna go down into your label as well a little bit further down. But like I've seen artists or talked to artists that are pretty well known, and they get signed to a label where, let's say, the legend of the label has told artists that they cannot become bigger than themselves, right? So they keep those artists under, let's say, their little umbrella on the label, and they support them, which is great. But they will never let the artist fully become
evolve.
The butterfly they are. So those artists get frustrated and they leave the labels. So, like, in your opinion, because you're both a producer and a label owner, how do you see that situation? Like, any advice for those who are in that situation, or how should they look at this situation overall?
That's a really tough one, because like as a producer and artist, sometimes like I guess this kind of goes to like 360 deals. I think 360 deals are a bit dangerous because you can get locked into and held hostage by anyone really, but in this case like a label and stuff. And I think like you have to really kind of, it's hard, because like you never really know like people's intentions in the music industry, and there's so many people that I've met and that I've been screwed over so many times where I'm like, yeah, this person's like super legit, and and then they turn out to be not, because you know, at the end of the day, I feel like in the music industry everyone's kind of in it for themselves in one way or another. You know, like even like super nice and genuine people, like if you're in the music industry and you're trying to make it as an artist, at the end of the day, like you're your number one priority. So it's very easy to encounter people with the kind of character that like will push someone else down to get themselves up, right?
To get themselves up.
Yeah, so it's tough. It's really tough navigating. I've definitely worked with people that I thought were like really good friends and super genuine, and then like at that moment that they're like, oh, you know what, like I can get something if I backstab you, then they'll do it. But that's like whole different stories that like is not the kind of thing to be shared on like an interview.
No, well, no, but the thing is, actually, this is the sort of things that we kind of out here. because I think that both Linnea and I have come from a place of not so great experiences at times. We've had fantastic experiences, but not so great experiences. And one of the things that we try to do on this show is kind of inform people, educate people, so they don't end up in the same situation that perhaps we were in over time. And it's interesting you bring up the topic of, you know, I thought these people were really nice, and you know, when you first start doing a collaboration, there is this energy, isn't there? Because it's all this goodwill of trying to write a track together, and it's all terribly exciting. The honeymoon period, I call it. And but often because of, and we've talked about this before in other shows, because that everybody doesn't actually start off on the same page with a contract, perhaps, because we really promote collaboration contracts, not, you know, so it's all done and dusted before you get to the label part.
No, that's a really good idea.
Do you know what I'm saying? And one of the things I've been saying for ages is, and we actually created our collaboration contract, which we give out for free, by the way. But I've been saying to label owners, you should make that mandatory. You shouldn't sign an artist or a producer without knowing that there is a collaboration contract there in place, because at least, right? If it was mandatory, it would then trickle downhill that people had to do that, and then at which point there wouldn't be the big giant fallouts. And if there was a fallout, they can refer back to the contract, and at least it doesn't potentially destroy relationships along the way.
I've encountered stuff like that where you know, we're signing a track, and then all of a sudden, like the splits and the master percentages and stuff like that, like if it's a feature artist or a primary artist, and none of that's been like figured out on like the artist end, and then all of a sudden, like as a label, you're suddenly like thrust in the middle of, like, you know, one artist saying like, no, I don't want to be featured, like, you know, or I can't go into details but like we have had recently like a couple contracts where we were like, okay, you know what, we can't sign this because we just, like, if we sign this, we feel like we're going to be in a whole world of pain dealing with his management because of something like this.
Absolutely.
So I definitely think, like, if there's a collaboration coming in from an artist to a label, it's a really good idea to either have a collaborator contract or just say like, hey, like right off the start, like this is how it's supposed to be laid out for the percentages and splits and who's a primary and stuff like that. So at least like the labels know as well too what they're getting into, and not like after they've done the contract and they're about to sign, or you're getting to the release date and they're like, actually, and then you're like,
or do I have direct accounting? No, actually, all the money is going to the producer, and it's getting filtered through from the producer to the artist, and that happens. Because unfortunately, it's the producer, or I'm not going to globalize that. What I mean is, whoever's signing the track, whether it be the vocalist, whether it be the producer, they're the ones that end up signing the track, and so they end up getting the money. And that's happened so many times to me. I don't know if it's happened to you, Linnea.
Loads of times. I think what needs to happen, even like with so many friends, because like when you're in the music industry and you have released some of the tracks, people, you know, you get friends out of this industry as well, which is amazing. And as you say, they get super excited and say like, hey, let's collaborate, and, you know, like, hey, do you want to, you know, do a song together? And that's great. But everybody tends to not talk about like, let's do the splits, like I will offer you 50% or whatever, are you cool with that? They tend to not mention that, and then in the end it becomes really awkward when you already created the song, right? So I think one way is to avoid these things, as you say, like a collaboration contract, but also just have the conversations, like try to make that in the beginning. And I even feel awkward today, even when I sit and talk about this all the time in this podcast.
It's taboo.
It still happens to me that people is just like, hey, and then, you know, they run away or whatever. It's like an awkward situation, and I just I'm hoping that people in the music industry will think about it and just talk about it in the start, and then that's it.
It is. So I just to throw this question out here to both of you. Why do you think it is that artists in a collaboration situation find it so difficult to have that conversation? What do you think the psychology is behind that?
I've never found it hard to have that conversation personally, because every time I reach out to a vocalist, if it's a top line, there's usually a fee attached to it, and like they're like very clear, like this is the terms. And then like if it's a collaboration with someone that I've reached out to, then it's usually just like, hey, can we do 50-50 across the board? And that's like, that right there is like just sorted everything. I don't know. I think maybe sometimes, see, I'm just guessing for other other situations, but it could just be they don't communicate, and then one person feels like they did most of the work and they want most of the money, or maybe like they did it and just one person's too greedy to want to, you know, or actually one thing is maybe that the artist or vocalist thinks that they're a bigger name and they are entitled to more because they're
that's definitely one. That's definitely one. Yeah,
which is actually, I don't know if you guys have been following the whole bass nectar thing, but I read this like massive article yesterday about one of his collaborators, and it's like this huge thing, and she was explaining how she wrote one of his biggest songs with him and didn't get any of the master percentage, and it went on to make like a ton, and it was just like she kind of got gaslighted into the like whole I'm the bigger act, so you know you're going to get exposure from it.
Oh my gosh, that's a t-shirt.
And
you
I think
exposure.
I think that's a very horrible way that people prey on smaller artists. By kind of like, you know, gaslighting and throwing that over them by saying like, I'm bigger, so you are worth less than I am. I think that's wrong. I think it's going to happen in the industry still. And I think the way to avoid that is for artists, vocalists, or DJs, because it goes both ways, although usually it's the vocalist that gets screwed over in this case. That I think the conversation at the start should happen, and the person that is possibly getting screwed over also needs to have the willingness to just say no if it's not the right deal for them, and like this person is saying you're worth less than me, that's I'm giving you less. It's usually a sign that things are just not going to be good in the future, even after you're done the song. And I know the want to work with someone bigger than you is going to be really great, but sometimes you just have to see your own self-worth and be like, no, I'm worth more than 10% or what you're offering me and stuff. So
you're so right. You're absolutely bang on. I think another one to just consider is this. If one is starting off in their career and they get the opportunity to work with a higher level artist or producer, they have to ask themselves the question, is this going to benefit my career? And if the answer is yes, what is that what I want out of this? And if the answer is yes, that's what I want out of this, is to accept that you're probably not going to make anything on that track. And in that acceptance, at least you're not going to be disappointed. You know, you've not got an expectation, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. And then the other thing is this. If you've done a few of those and you've decided when you ask yourself that question that actually, no, I don't want to just give this away. I don't want to just accept. If they're not willing to sign a contract, if they're not willing to negotiate with you on day one, that is a red flag, guys and girls. That is a red flag. And I don't mind sharing this. I have been in situations with massive artists, and I had a lot of tracks out and I'm reasonably well known. And when I asked for them to sign a collaboration contract, they decided not to move forward.
That's a big red flag. It's like such a simple thing.
Do you know
like
what's the issue?
It should be a no-brainer.
It's a red flag.
Yeah.
The thing is, like I have come across this, and I think some artists and some labels kind of use this in some kind of way. They know that this will give a great opportunity for somebody, so they kind of corner you, and you feel like, oh my god, this could really like uplift my career.
Yeah.
But in the same time, you feel really used, and it's a tricky situation. I don't like it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You've really got to make that either or decision. I'm either going to go with this. I'm not signing a contract. I'm not going to make an agreement here. But the chances are things are not going to go well, and you're going to get quite disappointed down the line.
Yeah.
In my opinion. It's
if you're okay with like the exposure that's given to take like a lower percentage or whatnot, then like that is your prerogative. Like that's like, you know, there's no issues with you doing that. But I think it's very important to at least feel right with the decision that you make.
Absolutely.
Whether if it's giving more percentage for that exposure, or walking away because you're not happy with it, or, you know, or asking for equal. Just, you have to feel right, I think, with yourself. Otherwise, it's just going to be issues. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. All right, so we'll move away from that delicate subject that no one ever wants to really talk about. I'm not saying you, but it's the truth. A lot of people don't like it. Okay, so you have received support and recognition from some of the industry's top DJs. Can you share any memorable experiences or collaborations that you've had with any of these A-list DJs, etc.?
Well, I suppose it's, you know, I've done a lot of stuff with Andy Moore, obviously, because we're partners at AVA and stuff, and it's been a real blessing for me that like he brought me on board with the label and made me a partner, and it's been really cool working with them. And then I think another cool experience was like I did a guest mix on A State of Trance. Finally, it's funny because I released an album right before the pandemic, and I was like, yes, my goal is to go on ASOT and do a guest mix. And then the pandemic was like, no, you're not. So I was like, okay, I better write a second album. So,
is that what you did?
It was like, there was a part of me, it was like, you know, like I need to write an album to like get on ASOT and do a guest mix. So it like kind of like gave me some additional drive to write the second album. But yeah, it was really nerve-wracking actually being on ASOT. Like, I've played some pretty big stages, and I was more nervous on ASOT than I was playing like Dream State. I can imagine. Especially like the part where like Ruben was asking me just to say like, hey, this is Somna, you're listening to my new track on A State of Trance. So easy right now, but when I'm like at the studio having to record, I swear my voice was shaking.
I think I would be shaking too, because first of all, it's recorded live. So, you know, if you mess up, then everybody's seeing that. And they were like, haha, you messed up yourself. You know? So yeah, I can imagine that.
And then I also scratch when I DJ as well too. And on ASOT, I asked Ruben, I was like, is it okay if I scratch? And then he's like, yeah, go for it. No one's ever done it before, but I think it sounds horrible personally. So I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do it. And then I ended up doing it anyways. And it's like, it definitely made a huge difference. It's like the most watched portion of like ASOT, and the Instagram Reels is like, that was a lot. So I'm really happy I did that, but that was definitely like a really scary moment for me as well too. But I was kind of like, I might never get the chance, so I'm gonna do this and try to stand out.
Oh, I love it. I think,
well done.
First of all, you deserve to be on there for sure. You're like a little trance legend, so
that's
I'm so happy to see you there. And I can imagine like the stress. I would probably also faint. So
I was so tired too, because I was like really jet lagged. So in between like the show portion, I also recorded a 1-hour guest mix. I was like napping on the couch, you know, the ASOT couch like on the side. I was I'll sleep on there after lunch, and then they're like, okay, time to record your 1-hour one. But I was really jet lagged.
Crazy.
Wow. Very, very
what
cool.
A memory though.
Yeah, I'm just so grateful that like Ruben is so nice. And the interview I did with him was, he like really took his time to sort of research me in advance. So the questions that he asked and stuff in the podcast section was like, yeah, I'm grateful. He's been very supportive of both Ava and myself, and obviously Armin as well too. They are great for our label.
Yeah, that's great.
amazing.
Do you think a state of trance is important for trance artists out there?
I think so.
To be connected to, is it? Do you think it's a big deal to be supported on that radio show?
I think as far as worldwide reach goes, there is no other radio show that reaches for trance as much as the State of Trance. And it's like, I don't know if they tweet tracks anymore. I think they might have stopped it, but I remember like when I first got like my first ASOP play, the amount of like my Twitter was just like blowing up. And it just reaches so many people in like not just like Europe and North America, but out in like Asia and stuff like that. They like out in China, they know like a State of Trance and Indonesia and stuff like that, and they might not know any other radio station. So you have an opportunity to have your music reach out super far. And I think a State of Trance is, it's not the be all and end all of a trance career. If you don't get ASOP played, you're not going to like, your career is not going to perish, but it does like, it does help, and it's fantastic to get the support. But if you don't get it, like don't feel like it's the end of the world, because you can still make it and write music. It'll happen when you least expect it.
Yeah, absolutely. Very wise words there.
Absolutely.
So going into the label, all right, you are the label manager, you are A&R and co-owner of AVA Recordings together with Andy Moore. So you have like a significant role within the electronic music scene overall, which is really cool. So tell us the story about like how you became like the co-owner and how you met Andy Moore overall.
It's interesting actually. So Andy played in Vancouver in Canada, and for a promoter, and I picked him up from the airport. And before that, I released a song on AVA already, and I emailed Andy and I said, hey, look, like I'd love to get involved. Like I'll listen to like crappy demos, like, you know, I'll make your coffee, but you know, like not actually, because I don't actually live near him. But I basically said like I'd love to get involved if there's any roles within the label for me. And then when I picked him up from the airport, one of the first things he asked me was like, do you know how to do design? And I was like, oh yeah, I know how to do design. And then he was like, do you want to be a 50-50 partner? And I was like, what? And so, yeah, right there, I became half of AVA. And that was like 2016, I think it was.
Wow, that's a great story.
Since then, I've been running the label with them. We have some other fantastic like volunteers and staff as well too that help us out. We're not a big operation, but we have some amazing people that help us at the label. But yeah, it's really kind of as simple as that. He was just like, I get good vibes from you, man. Let's be partners.
No,
like,
that's amazing. I can imagine that. That's great. And can I ask the AVA logo, did you create that?
No, I didn't. AVA was around long before I joined for sure. It started in like 2006, actually. And it's named after Andy's oldest daughter. The actual logo for AVA, I'm not too sure how that came about, but yeah, it was created long before I even.
It's one of my favorite logos, actually. I think it's really great brand.
It's really good, yeah.
Really if you look around the world, there's definitely AVA logos that look just like that as well too. I've seen like AVA all over the place. Unfortunately, we don't have it trademarked or anything, but
bummer. So what's been some of the label's proudest moments for you?
We have been super fortunate to do some AVA nights in some fantastic cities. Like we've done 2 in Japan, in Indonesia, some of the States and Canada. So I think it's just amazing that people want to partner up with our brand and have us like host a room or do a night. We are hitting 500 releases on the main label next year around May.
That's a lot.
It is. And that's actually just our main label, because we also have our AVA White label, and that
Yeah.
is past 300 now. And then we have our
Wow.
AVA Deep label. So overall, we are, and then all the past releases and like AVA Chill and AVA Blue and stuff like that. But I think we are, I don't know, we're probably closing in on like 900 releases, I think, as
That's
a entire
outrageous.
label.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yay.
So
it's pretty
amazing.
crazy.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of the artists that we have on the label and the people that send us the music to release. There's a lot of like forward thinking stuff on there. We just have just some really genuine people that work really hard and may not have the recognition that they deserve. But I just I'm happy that they're choosing us to release their music.
That's great.
That's great. I love your championing them. That's
Yeah.
great.
How
Yeah.
can you shed like light on like the process of like discovering and nurturing new talents as an
Yeah.
A&R in the transgender? Like what qualities are you looking for specifically maybe for AVA recordings?
Well, I don't really do the A&Ring anymore. I used to. We have his name is Yang. First name's Jesse, and he helps us with like filtering the demos and stuff. We actually have a couple A&Rs. So Jesse Yang is his artist name. He handles kind of like everything that comes in the demos at avarecordings.com, and then we have the Ava White one, which is RD from Poland, not RT but RD.
Yeah.
He helps us with like curating and finding great music for our uplifting side. And then LTN Lewis, he pretty much, he's also label manager for AVA Deep. So not only does he A&R, but he also schedules and does the contracts and stuff for the AVA Deep label. We honestly just like if we get a song that we love, then we sign it, and just that, I don't know, it's kind of as simple as that. If we like, we sign,
Yeah.
whether or not they're big or small.
Right.
I guess one of the things that I could give as advice as someone that has done A&R in the past and still like Andy and I still do have like final say on songs, is that like if we see someone that's like really dramatic online and always full of drama, we tend to stay clear away from artists like that.
That's
So
I have to
interesting.
agree. Yeah,
that
I
is
have
one
to agree. Yeah.
that is one
Absolutely.
thing that even if your music is good and you're an asshole online, then like
Yep.
kind of be like, no, because that's not really what
That's not
what
where
we
you're
want.
at. No.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
love that. I respect that a lot, actually. I love that you're saying that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. Like I am the A&R for auditory recordings, right? And let's say sometimes you come across artists that have really amazing demos, but just like the way they're talking to people who are in the label is it's not really friendly. Let's say it like that. So then you don't want to do a deal, even if the song is amazing. That you have to be, really just be nice and friendly,
Yeah,
overall.
definitely not like aggressive and mean and yeah.
Prima donna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another flag, folks.
Yeah. Sometimes
It's a
it
flag.
can be like I have come across artists that want to tell me how to run the label, and I'm like, no, that's not how it's done, so that's yeah, it happens.
So with the advent of social media and online platforms, artists now have direct access to their fans. How do you see these digital channels shaping relationships between artists, labels, and their audiences?
I think it's fantastic. To kind of jump off of like what you said, I started streaming on Twitch during the pandemic, and I found that not only propelled my my career, but it allowed me to interact with people that supported my music, and also for them to kind of like get to know me as a person. And I feel like nowadays, like, you not only do you have to write good music, but you also need to be like, you have to have like a story, and people have to kind of know you as a person, as your journey, and like you, aside from just your music, to really kind of like get up there. Because there's so much great music out there, but when they get to like know you, or you interact with them and they see the real you, then I think that matters really big for your career, even if you don't make it. But just even if you don't make it, it gives you it just, I don't know, it just feels nicer as an artist to feel like you're making these connections with people that support
Yeah.
your music. So that kind of intertwines with the social media aspect and how easy it is to contact people now. But I think it's great. I do think it's difficult sometimes to juggle it, and I have encountered people that, like, you know, the message, and then if you don't reply in like an hour, they're like question marks or like something like that. But
Mhm.
but I think it's fantastic that we as artists now are not hidden behind just like a press photo or hidden behind a label, but that we
Mhm.
can actually tell our story not just through music, but also through our voice or like our personality online. Um,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And speaking about that, like you're actually known for having a little bit of laugh on social media, like with the
yeah.
humoristic posts together with your music releases. And, you know, just look at your background right now. That looks amazing.
It's
But
costume.
and first of all, I have to say I love your posts. They're so funny always. So I really enjoy them. But
Thank you.
how important do you think social media is, like a social media presence overall as an artist versus just being a great producer? Is it like, is it just as important as having a great track, or like what's your view on it? That
Yeah, it's probably more important than having a great track, to be honest. I think like uh, yeah, I definitely know a lot of really successful artists that may have some questionable songs, in my opinion. And I think like having good social media will take you further um, than having like bare minimum social media and a great track. I think the longevity of your career matters with the music that you make. So um, if you don't have great tracks to back up your great social media, then you will plateau or eventually fade away. But
Mhm.
if
yeah,
you have great music and no like really terrible social media, then you won't even get to that point where you get the plateau, because you just like you won't get up there. So
Right.
if you want to get past like here, you need to have both. But if you have great
right,
social media, you can make it to here and kind of just like flatline. Um, and if you want
yeah,
to break the barrier, then your music has to start being exceptional to get to the next like
Right.
rung of the ladder or something like that.
yeah.
And that's a really nicely explained way to look at that.
Going into another topic in regards to like productions and things like that. So some argue that ghost producers are essential part of the music industry. It's helping like maybe bigger artists that has like busy schedules, and enable them to release more music. And is that a good or bad thing? Do you think people care about that overall?
I think fans don't seem to care about it that much, because every time someone gets outed, then it's like it just like fizzles away.
Yeah,
I do ghost productions, and I have been a ghost producer as well too. And I think ghost production is uh, it's sort of like a necessary evil if you want to be able to survive making enough money as a music producer. I don't particularly enjoy doing it because it's like taking away my creativity to write for someone else
Right.
to a certain
yeah,
extent, because there are some people that I will write for that are so involved in the song that they are a co-producer. They're just not part of the engineering
yeah,
process, and that's a joy to work with, because they'll have ideas that never came to my mind, and
yeah.
that I'm okay with. But yeah, there's definitely instances where it's just like, make me a song like this, and then you make it, and that feels like a little piece of your soul getting sucked away.
Oh.
Um,
I feel the same. Yeah, I
yeah,
also been the ghost producing for some people, and every time like I feel like I'm giving away my baby, and I don't like it either, and I tend to kind of stay away a little bit from it, but it has happened.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Linnea, I didn't know you did that.
I didn't know that you did
Mm.
that as well too.
There you go.
All these things
Or,
just
you
keep
know.
popping out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
Gee whiz. Holy
Yeah.
moly, we'll talk about that later. I'm interested.
Right. So I have a question for you, Ben.
Mhm.
Would you rather have the power to turn any object into a musical instrument, or be able to communicate with animals through trance beats?
Oh, communicate with animals for sure. Like, I wish I could talk to my cat. Like,
Yeah.
my cat could understand what I'm saying, and vice versa. So I would want to be an animal whisperer for sure.
With the trance beats. I
With the
love that.
trans piece, yeah.
What would you
Without a
tell your
doubt.
cats if you could have like one conversation with your cats?
Oh,
What would you tell them?
I think, well, first of all, yeah, I think that if I could only tell her one thing, it would be that,
Yeah.
like, when I leave the house, I am coming back.
Yeah.
Like, when I go on tour, I am coming back, because I always
Yeah.
feel like I worry that, like, every time I leave the house that she thinks she's being abandoned or something like that.
No.
And like, I'm sure she doesn't think that way, but that is my, like, I don't want my cat to think that she's being abandoned.
Yeah.
No.
That's cute. I love that.
So, Ben, would you rather travel back in time to convince Beethoven to compose a trance symphony, or fast forward to the future where robots dance to your music?
I mean, do I get older if I fast forward?
I don't know. That wasn't in the criteria.
I mean, like, if I get
don't
older,
know.
then, like, no. Robots dance. on
It
me.
says fast forward, so no.
Okay, so I stay the same age.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, like, if the robots are sentient and they, like, actually can think for themselves and they want to dance to my music because they actually enjoy it, rather than just like programming, then I'd rather go in the future than backwards. Because you were saying, was it Beethoven?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he doesn't need to produce like a trance track. He's done his part in history in creating some amazing music already. So, like, he can chill. He can chill and then let the robots do some dancing.
I think it might have taken a lot of convincing anyway, don't you think?
Also, like, I don't know, personal preference, when a trance track has a ginormous orchestral breakdown, I'm like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like, I just kind of like stand around. Like, it just goes on for too long, and I'm like, what is this, like the movie? Like a movie? So like, orchestral trance is like, if I'm at home, then I'll be like, okay. If I'm at a club, I'm like, okay, it's time to go get a drink.
Do you not wave your hands around though?
I mean, like, for the first 30 seconds, and then after the 5-minute mark of like violins, like 5 minutes of like violins and trumpets, and you're like, okay, I feel like I need to go for a washroom break.
Oh, bless you.
This is great. But it's true. I was also, when you DJ and you play one of those tracks because it's big, let's say, like, I don't know, it could be Ferry, and he released a big track and everybody loves it, and then it's like this awkward kind of moment where it's just like orchestra and you just stand there as a DJ, you don't know what to do. So you like tend up to take up a drink and you're like, oh, well, this is great.
I think that's why like DJs touch the knobs so much, because we just like in between the mixing, we're like,
what do we do?
Like, we don't know what to do. And,
Do you have fake? I'm not a DJ, but do you have fake knobs just in case you sort of turn it too much and you're, pretending?
I won't actually turn the knobs, but I will like touch it just to like make sure the knob still exists. Like, as I DJ, I was like, okay, it's still there. It's still there.
I love it.
That's funny. Yeah. I also try to stay away. That's not faking it, but I touch it as well.
Yeah.
So looking ahead, Ben, what can your fans expect from Somna?
Just more music, I guess. I would actually really love to explore like melodic bass a little bit more. I really enjoy that kind of stuff, like trance without a trance beat. And so I'd love to write a bit more of that. that stuff. I think at the moment after finishing my second album, there was a couple months where I was like, okay, well, I don't know what to do now. So the next couple songs I've written, like I'm going to be focusing on singles now, and I think trying to expand the labels that I release on a bit, because I've primarily been like Black Hole, AVA, Armada, and like I've never released on Antonia Beats. So one of my things is like I would love to release on Antonia Beats someday, and just I guess like diversify a little bit, and then I don't know, maybe come back to an album in the future. But albums are tough because not every song gets the love that you hope for. But the fact that you can make a journey is really rewarding. But from a monetary standpoint, or trying to make your songs, exploit your songs as much as possible, it's just it's not really the smartest thing to do. So probably take a break from an album. I think just do singles.
And you're going to ADE this year?
I am. Are you guys going to be ADE?
I'm not going to be there.
Maybe.
Linnea might be there.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, if you do end up, we should definitely
we should definitely
I'd love
offer
that.
or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm not there this year, I will definitely be there next year, or at Miami, one or the other.
Yeah, one or the other.
I've never been to the Miami one before.
Have you not? Oh my goodness.
I haven't. I'd like to.
Goodness.
But given the choices between the two, I've been told that like Miami's more partying and AD is kind of like more of like the parent-teacher conference.
Business.
So like AD is I go because I don't really go to party. Maybe I'm too old for it now, but I'm there to like do business stuff and
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, a lot of great business gets done in Miami as well, but usually through partying.
Yeah. I guess that makes sense.
Totally.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Somna. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show. It's always great to talk to you and continue being funny and awesome online, because I really enjoy it. At least so one person loves it. So
I'm glad. I wish I got booked because of like the memes that I make.
Yes.
I'd probably be like the most booked trans DJ there was. But, like,
I'm sure. But yeah, keep doing amazing work out there, both for the label but also for your productions, and we look forward to hear more from you.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and we love your background.
Thank you. I'd love to work with you guys as well too in the future. If you guys want to write some music, we'll make sure we
definitely
have a collaborator contract.
And with the collaboration contract, absolutely, I love it.
Yeah. Well, hit me up if you want some vocals on that Arjuna project, and we can make that happen.
That'd be great.
All right, you take very good care of yourself. Have a lovely rest of your day.
You too.
So thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of Love Vocals Nation. We hope you've enjoyed today's musical journey with our special guest, Somna. Stay tuned for more fascinating features with the brightest stars and emerging artists in the world of electronic dance music. Until next time, keep the love of vocals alive, and see you soon.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
In my bloodstream, I need you in my veins. I need you like an antidote that drives the pain.